I had had enough.
Well, you drove out there into the middle of nowhere and had some sort of loud verbal display challenging ET in general out in the middle of nowhere?
That's what I was doing. I actually had a pistol in my hand at the time. I was really ticked off. When I was having this fit, I was waving the gun in the air, okay, and I had this fit. And at this moment, I said, okay.
He was a Louisiana man named Montaldo. Folks around called him Six Gun Joe. Worked with ICAR, don't you know? Investigating UFOs. Out for a drive with a gal one night, they stopped to check out the reporting site. When an alien lit right there on the ground, he commenced to throwing his weight around. Now, old Six Gun didn't take too kindly to that kind of thing, especially without Vaseline or anything like that, seriously. Well, Six Gun looked that critter right in the eye and said, "Any last wish before you die?" He yelled, reached for his gun, quick as a twitch, and said, "Fill your claw, you son of a bitch." Now a legend spread across the land about this pistol-waving man. But if you're from space or from Earth below, you don't give no lip to Six Gun Joe.
Are you ready to explore the unknown? Dive into the world of the strange, mysterious, and unexplained with Eerie Expeditions magazine. Each issue is packed with spine-tingling tales, cutting-edge paranormal investigations, and exclusive insights into hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and more. Whether you're a seasoned investigator or just love a good ghost story, Eerie Expeditions magazine has something for you. Join our growing community of truth seekers and adventure lovers. Subscribe today at EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com and unlock the secrets of the supernatural. Are you ready? That's EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com, where the extraordinary is just a click away. Dare to discover.
Welcome to the Gateway, broadcasting live from the edge of the Mojave where the strange slips through the cracks. We are live on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM New Orleans, and I'm your host, C.L. Thomas. Tonight's guest is UPRN talk radio listener Donna Copas, who has been encountering what her people call the Watchers since she was 6 years old. And when I say her people, Donna is of Shawnee descent. But before we get into our topic, you have been listening to Into the Night with Sean Callie. He comes on again on Sunday evenings. Sean is kind of feeling under the weather tonight, so hopefully, if you're listening, Sean, feel better soon. It's currently 60 degrees here in the Mojave. So actually it was Sunday night. For those who celebrate out there, it was the first day of Hanukkah. So Hanukkah typically starts from sundown, and it started this past Sunday, and it's referred to as the Festival of Lights. Hanukkah concludes after 8 days, so the 22nd at sundown is when it's officially concluded. Here's a little bit of Jewish mysticism for you guys. Winter solstice is at the end of Hanukkah. So I think winter solstice is at sundown on the 21st. It marks the rebirth of the sun, marking the longest night, and it's the turning point towards daylight. So from sundown on the 21st until the 22nd is typically when the winter solstice happens. Cultures worldwide have long celebrated this astronomical event with festivals, feasting, rituals, symbolizing rebirth, light, and hope, with ancient sites such as Stonehenge, Newgrange, and there's other structures out there that align with the return of the sun. Next week, in honor of that, I have Dennis Stone. He is the owner of America's Stonehenge. He's going to come back on. He's been a guest before, but he's going to come on and talk about the rebirth of the light and some of the things that are related to winter solstice in America's Stonehenge. It's going to be an interesting show. But just keep in mind when you guys are celebrating Christmas, just about everything with Christmas is actually pagan. There's really not a whole lot of Christianity involved with Christmas when you really look at it historically. So from the lighting of your Christmas tree to your fireplaces, receiving gifts, all of that is actually from pagan traditions. So maybe one day I'll have a show on that or something, but yeah. So along with all of that, and it seems like all of the holidays kind of take little pieces from that. It's very interesting. So Bigfoot has been a long-time fascination with paranormal enthusiasts. Estimates suggest that there are several thousand active Bigfoot researchers worldwide, with approximately 1,000 to 3,000. This is according to ChatGPT. There's 1,000 to 3,000 in the United States alone who regularly investigate sightings, conduct research, or public findings, and there are tens of thousands that participate casually. Some of these figures, where you get into like the 1,000 to 3,000, it comes from organizations such as Bigfoot Researchers Organization, the North American Wood Ape Conservancy, and there's other various regional research groups out there right now. And these guys have thousands and thousands of members. With all of these people, most of those people fit into two categories. There's those that experience the Bigfoot and are, generally curious, or some, in this category is probably where my guest would fit. And then there's those with equipment that are looking for evidence, kind of like what you get in the paranormal field. My guest tonight, she's an experiencer, and these beings have been a consistent presence in her life throughout her life, and she's formed a relationship with them that she describes mutual and ongoing. Let me get her on here. Hi, Donna. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to have you on here. Sean talks a lot about you.
Oh, he's a wonderful guy. I love Sean. He is just, I can't even tell you how great he is and how much I really appreciate him. He's a very good friend.
So I don't know where we should start. I guess we should start with you as what started this whole thing with Bigfoot with you?
Well, my first sighting was, I was 6 years old. My dad was a hunter, a trapper, dug roots for a living. He was born in 1927 in a cabin way back in the woods. He was a true mountain man, that's the way he grew up. And my grandmother, which was full-blood Shawnee, of course, she interacted with the Watchers also. So our whole family, generation to generation. And on this day, my first encounter, I was 6. And there was a county fair in town, and I wanted to go to the fair. But, of course, I lived on a 300-acre farm. We had orchards. We grew, the cattle, the pigs, the chickens, 11-acre berry patches. Everything we needed came from the land, and that's how I grew up. And we made our living from the land. And so I was always in the woods. Dad worked. It wasn't that he didn't work. He did. He farmed, but he had another job. But, a lot of our living came from the ground and digging into the roots and all that. So his rules was, if you wanted something, you had to work for it. It wasn't just given to you. You were taught responsibility, respect, the whole thing. He was a very kind, loving man. I never got a spanking in my life, which I thoroughly deserved one, but he did not do it. So on this day, I wanted to go. So he's like, well, I'll take you. There's a there's a patch of yellow root back in here, and I'll take you back there, and you can dig some of that to make your money for the fair. And I was all excited, because, I'm 6, I'm tiny little old thing. And that Ferris wheel was just, oh my God, so amazing. I just, my big dream was I want to ride the Ferris wheel. And then they had
I don't think I've ever had that dream.
I don't know. I had this fascination with heights. I climb everything. And, but anyway, that day I had to do my chores. That was before I could do anything. I had to do my chores, which was to feed the chickens and gather the eggs, and which we had a setting hen, and she nearly took chunks out of me that morning because I was in a big rush and I scared her a little too much. So she'd peck you when she'd get you. And then I went over to the barn. I had to feed the calves and do that kind of stuff. So I did all that, and then I grabbed we would use the feed sacks. We had the burlap feed sacks that the cow feed came in for the cows. And so I grabbed a couple of them and grabbed the old mattock, that's what we're going to dig with. And back to the house I went, and through the back door, my poor dad, he's still sitting at the kitchen table trying to finish his breakfast and drink his coffee. And I'm diving into his lap and, just being a nuisance like always. And finally he just gave up and he's like, all right, let's go, So off through the woods we go. And we went into the deep woods, that's where there was a big patch of yellow back there. Some cliffs up around us, and we've been sitting there digging. Well, Dad did most of the digging. I mostly did the cleaning. You have to break the roots. You take the tops from the roots and shake the dirt out, and one goes in one bag, and the other. So we've been doing that for quite a while. And then finally, Dad, of course, we raised tobacco, and Dad would take the long green from the barn. It's unprocessed, it's cured, and he would chew it, but it wasn't sent through the processor. And he had that in the top of his bibs, and he got up and he walked over. There's a stump beside where we were digging, and he laid his tobacco up on that stump, and then he tells me, come on, we're going to go. And of course I'm grumbling, I don't want to go because I'm making my money for the fair. And he's like, no, come on. He called me Dookie. He didn't call me Donna. He called me Dookie. Like, no, come on now, we're going to go. And that tone of voice said, that's enough, we're going. So I got up and still kind of dig my toe in the dirt, and he got a hand and pick up those bags. And I looked back, and when I looked back, right there, about 30 feet from where I had been sitting, this massive, huge black figure stood up. And of course, like I said, I was little, and it scared me. I'm got that. Dad's got me by the hand, and he just kind of shook my hand. He's giving a little shake, and he said, "Nat, come on now." He said, "Be quiet." He said, "You leave him alone, he'll leave you alone." He said, "He's just watching us." He said, "He's not here to hurt you. He's just watching us." So that was my first interaction, and to me, I think that was Dad's way of introducing me. That was my first introduction for me to meet them and see and learn, because after that, that's when my education started. He taught me about the marker stones, the shelters, of course, I grew up hunting, I had 2 older brothers, but I hunted with my dad, and he taught me to track. That was when he ran his trap lines, I went with him. God, when I was even little, he would carry me because I was such a pest. I would not let him out of my sight. I was attached to my dad. Bless his heart. I still think about, oh my gosh, what I put that poor man through. But
was it the first time that you heard that term, the Watchers?
I'm sorry, you kind of broke up.
Was this the first time that you've heard that term, the Watchers?
No, I heard. They never actually told me, but I heard them talk. I never got explained to exactly what they were or anything. My dad and my uncle, I hear them talking because I'm, how a kid is. I'm always around with big ears. Many a times I got in trouble for nosing, but I didn't understand what it meant until that day. That was the day that I learned, I saw what a watcher was, because before that I had not seen, the physical thing. And, but from then on, he told me about it, and like I said, he taught me, how to interact and be safe. Um, the big thing was, you don't push them. You always you be cautious. You show them respect. Don't do anything to, like challenge them, or it was. But he would show me, because the way he explained, there's different clans. Like we have clans. The Shawnee have clans. We have different names for different clans. We have like the deer, the bear, the wolf, the raven. Mud puppy, the snake clan. We have different clans. And so he would show me the markers, and he's like, this is their clans. This is a family unit here, which means that we call them clans. I guess other people can call them other things, but this was our terminology for it. This is their clan. So they have a specific mark. They do, with stones. You have like the teepee type, tree shelter type things. They'll lay stones down. We did gifting. That was also part of the rule, was if Dad hunted, a portion would be taken out and put out. That's, it's kind of like our gift to them. We're taken away from the forest and from their food supply. So as a sign of respect, we give something back. My grandmother always made apple cakes, and that's what I do. I make apple cakes. I do other stuff too, but I have different places that I go. We have a massive cave system here, and people ask me, do they leave? Do they stay there? Yeah, they stay here year-round.
Where are you located again?
I'm in southeastern Ohio, so we have a lot of
area.
The cave systems, and we have the waterways, and so and we have a lot of game, the deer. It's a good area. There's lots of fish, turtle.
So with the Watchers, are they connected to the Shawnee?
Yes, they, and in our beliefs, and the way I've been taught and told the stories, they're part of us. They are our, they're just part of who we are. They're not here to, I've never had any violence against me. They watch, they protect. The story was, in the early years, which wasn't just with the Shawnee, but with other tribes, they said the Moon-Eyed people came, and they had children with the people, our people, not the Watchers. The Watchers did not have children with our people. This other race of people, these were people, and the Watchers were left behind to protect the children of, the offsprings of this union between these two sets of people. Now that's the way I've been taught. I don't argue religion or politics or anything. I just, I don't set out to prove anything. I'm not a researcher. I just know what I know and how I've grown up. So everybody has their own opinion, and I don't argue that fact. For me, I know how my life has been, how my father's was, how my grandmother's was, and how we interact with them. There's a lot of theories. There's the theory of the fallen angels and all of that. But to me, they are, I can't explain what they are. I'm a rational person. I'm a Christian. I don't worship the devil, or I don't worship, I believe there's good and bad in everything. And I try to be the best person I can be. And I don't question anybody's belief in any way. So to me, I think they're flesh and blood, left over from whatever, I don't know. They're very intelligent, so they're more than an animal. They have different abilities, but also I think some of the ability to, like people say, they disappear. But to me, what I think is it's like the chameleon effect, like the lizards, the chameleons, they're right there. But they camouflage themselves because they blend in with their surroundings, like a snake in the grass. A green snake laying in the grass, you can't see it. We have green snakes here. Snake, they can blend right in. You can walk over top of them, you don't see them because they look like stick.
Would these be more like spiritual beings?
Or
something that exists between like two worlds?
I think they have an ability. Like I said, I think they're more flesh and blood. But also they've been born with that ability to camouflage like other animals can camouflage, in the woods and that kind of thing. When they're out away from cover, they're seen more. If you think about it and research it, if they're out in an open area, like an open field where you don't have the foliage and the trees, they're seen more, and there's more interaction because they don't have the ability to step into that tree and become part of that tree. It's not that they're not there. It's just that they can turn a certain way. They shimmer. They do have a shimmer. Their fur, because they're covered in hair, the fur changes. It shimmers. I've seen the moonlight hit them, and it's like they're still there. But even though they're there, you don't see them. It doesn't mean that they're not there. I can sense them because I have this. Over the years, I've kind of picked up this ability. I sense them. I know their feelings. They know mine. If I get agitated, they'll get agitated. If they're agitated, I feel that.
So they kind of mirror your emotions.
Right.
That's experiences that you're having.
If I'm, that was one of my very first lessons was to control my emotions. Not to get afraid, not to run. If you run, you become prey. As long as you're calm, and of course, no violence. You don't want to be aggressive or do anything as a sign of aggression. Honestly, I've had, like I said, I've never. One time I got hit, but it was just by a flying cooler. But that was not its fault. It was being antagonized by somebody else, and it threw. And when it threw, I just happened to be the person that was in the way and got hit. But are they violent? Yeah, they are very. They can be very aggressive, very scary, and so
I think that might be Sean, but I'm not sure. Riverbird 12. I think that's Sean.
Well, if it is, hi, Sean. I've had some different experiences, like I said, with my dad. My dad said he was around 3 or 4 the first time he saw one. Because, like I said, he was born in 1927 in a cabin way deep in the woods. This is just an old log cabin. I don't think I have a picture of him sitting on the front porch of it, which is a very primitive log cabin. And where it said it's deep in the woods. And he said that, of course, they don't have a bathroom. Their water comes from the spring. They have an outhouse, and then he was little and needed to go to the bathroom. It was nighttime, so his mother had taken him outside to go to the bathroom. And he said instead of taking him all the way to the outhouse, she'd taken him over to the edge of the yard. And he was going to the bathroom, and he said, again, he's like this huge black figure stood up over him. And which scared him, he's a little boy. And he said, but his mother walked over straight up, because it's right there on top of him, literally over top of him, and picked him up in her arms and simply put her hand up and said, no, my baby. And it was, so they interacted. This one that came, was attached to her in some way. And said it just turned and walked back up through the woods, it walked away from him. And he's like, yeah, it scared me to death, he said. But then ma'am told me, it's like he told me, Everything my grandmother taught him, he taught me. And
So
like,
these things are kind of generational in your
yes,
family.
right. They have been, they've been around. How I explain it is like the older ones now, because I'm in my 60s. So the older ones now I grew up with because I played the woods. I was in the woods. They were in the woods where I played. So we grew up, not like we interacted every day. It wasn't like we went out and played together. We didn't play ball, but they were there. They knew me. I knew them, so it was our own way of, living together. We
And I'm
I did
sure the mutual respect for nature played a big part too, right?
absolutely because it's not just for them. I respect all animals. The earth, my trees. I I hunt. We've always hunted, but we don't. Only time we hunt is if that's for food. And once that animal's taken, if we take a deer, there's not one scrap of that deer that is not used. My son does the bone knives. We pull the sinew to wrap the blades. He splits the leg bones. It becomes the blade of that. Everything
Mhm.
is used, not just, it's used for food, but it's used for, we use it for everything. So, it's if you're going to take its life, you respect that animal enough to say, it gave its life for me. So you want to give it full respect. And when we take it, we do our little prayer and we say, thank you,
So
for your,
from the time that you were young, at what point did you start to, like, you knew they were there
right.
growing up? They were always they were always kind of a presence for you. When did you start to kind of build a relationship with them? And what do you mean by build a relationship? Maybe we start there.
Okay. Well, like I said, the first time I saw him, I was 6. And of course, I was little and I was afraid. So I went through, a couple years of my dad taking me out, explaining things to me very thoroughly, and then learning to control my emotions, learning not to give in to that fear. Because if I give into that fear, it's like um, that's kind of a sign of disrespect too. Because if they're not harming me, why am I fearing them? And if I let myself become afraid of everything, I'm not going to learn and be able to deal with what I'd have to deal with. So it wasn't just with them, but as time went on, he taught me all of that kind of stuff. And then when I was around 12, um, I would see them. It wasn't like I seen them every day. I would see them in the woods or whatever, and I knew they were there. I could sense them being there, and they just watched me. They didn't. They would leave me little gifts. Dad taught me to leave little gifts too, and they would leave little things behind. Rocks, just odd shaped rocks, or just kind of like childish things, like children playing together, really. And but when I was around 12, I remember the morning because I went to the barn. By then, I had graduated into a bigger pony, and I had a creek. Of course, where I grew up, this is a farm, so we didn't have air conditioning. We was lucky if we had a fan. So you found a cool spot to go, and I had a creek. And in that creek, there was one spot where there was like a little waterfall type thing, and the bottom of the creek was like blue clay, and it was only about maybe 12 inches deep. And I would take my book and I would go there and I'd lay in that water in the summertime because it's cool. I had really, really long hair, and my grandmother would braid my hair so tight. Have you ever had your hair braided so tight that it pulls back your skin up?
Yes, I used to wear my hair in 2 braided plaits.
Yeah.
And
She would just tear strips of cloth, and she braided it into my hair and wrap it and tie it down, because I would come home with cuckleburrs in my hair and sticks, and I was continuously getting into something. I was a wild child. I was terrible. So, she would braid that down. Well, as soon as I hit that creek, what happens? You take your hair down. So, but I knew if I came home without having those strings, those pieces of cloth, I'd get in trouble with my grandma. So I laid them. There's a big rock there by where I would lay, and I laid those up on that rock. And then I got my book, and I was laying there, and I fell asleep. Kind of, because the water wasn't deep, and I just, I had a little lamp at my head, made a little stack of rocks, kid playing, and I fell asleep. And I woke up, and I'm thinking it was getting later in the evening. Of course, there were cedar groves all around where the creek was. I'm down in a valley, and the banks are up high around me, and then there's a cedar grove. And I looked over, and those those ribbons are gone. And I'm thinking, oh, crap, I'm in trouble. She's going to put the switch to me for sure, And but then I thought, well, I had two older brothers that was, they're a lot older than I am. So they was continuously torturing me, doing stuff, just being brotherly, picky. I thought, well, they've snuck down and stole them to get me in trouble. And then I look up, and there was shadows come down because it wasn't dark, but it was getting evening. And I seen going through those cedars, there was just enough light that it cast the shadows. And I see the dark figure moving, and those strings are going with it. I can see him. It's carrying them. So he stole my ribbons. I was like, oh, okay. So I had rode my pony down, and I just kind of, I ground time. I dropped the bit and loosened the saddle. I never unsaddled him. I just dropped it in the bit so he could go ahead and eat, and just let him, just drop the reins so he can go far away. So I got him ready, and I headed on back home. Of course, me being me, nothing's keeping me out of my woods, So the next day, I went back to my spot, and there on that rock where he'd taken my strings from, he had put back, there was some stones laying there, and there was an arrow straightener. An arrow straightener, I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a stone. It's got a hole in the middle of it, and we use it to make the arrows. When you heat, because we make them, we nap the flint, that's for the head, but you take and cut this branch, and you heat that, and then you take that stone and you put it on there, and as it makes it hot, and it straightens it. So that's what an arrow straightener is, and it's just basically a rock with a hole in the middle, and it also shaves it down and smooths it. It's just a tool. It's an old-time tool. It's a Shawnee tool. Well, it's a native tool. About everybody uses it. And there was one of those there. And so I guess that was my present. He took my ribbons, but he brought me back some. And that's usually the way it works. If you leave something, there'll be something left behind for you. So
that's really interesting. So I have a couple more questions, and I want to get to some of the photos that you sent. You sent a bunch of photos. How do your experiences challenge the modern and scientific narrative about Bigfoot? Is there something that you feel like is missing? And I know that Squash Man is on here, who's been studying Bigfoot for 40 years. Is there something that we're missing from the conversation?
Well, like I said, I'm not a researcher, and I do talk to a lot of researchers, and they do have a lot of good ideas, and they have actually helped me a lot by just talking with them, and we interact back and forth. Because some of the things I try to rationalize everything. When I see something, I try to think, is there another explanation for it or whatever? Not everybody has the same experience that I do. They've got people I've interacted with them my whole life, so I grew up that way. But everybody's not like that, so they're different. So when they go out, they interact in different ways. To me, they are just part of who I am. I accept them for who they are. They accept me for who I am. Like I said, I think they're flesh and blood. I do know they have different abilities because I've seen it. I try to explain in my mind. I explain it away because, just like I said, If you go out into the jungles, the chameleon, the lizards can camouflage and hide right in front of you. They're right there and you can't see them. So to me, I think they have that ability too. I know a lot of the researchers, different people say, well, they move between two worlds. That's possible. I've seen lots of orbs. I do see, at times I've seen orbs around them. I had a couple of years ago, when I go into a place, I have my little ceremonial type thing that I do. I say a prayer. I ask for permission to be there. I ask for forgiveness for intruding upon their land. And then I have like, well, they're like gifting bags. They're just basically 4 little red bags and inside of them they have like corn and pumpkin and squash seed, just seeds. It's nothing, because once I put those down, and it's just going to grow into a plant for the earth,
Right.
And then I carry a bag of cornmeal. And I had did that, and it was in the nighttime, and because I still tend our burial grounds here. When my dad passed away, that job passed on to me, and I still do that because we still have our native burials that are in the woods, and they're secret because for obvious reasons, because what happens if somebody finds them. So that is never divulged. But I still tend those, and I do, what I've been taught to do. This is the Shawnee thing. And but I did that, and I was actually out there's a research group that comes here, and I guide them sometimes because they're good people, and they've gotten a lot of vocal here. They've had interaction. They had some before I started going out with them. They had some really violent interactions because they were getting huge rocks thrown at them, going through the top of their car, breaking windshields. And then after I started, the one lady, she even commented, she's like, "Since you've been with us, we don't get things thrown at us no more." And of course, they do the vocals. They do I don't do that. I play flute music. I play drum. I have a little chant I have sleigh bells. I use sleigh bells like when I put my gifting. I take my cakes out. I do a howl, and I use my bells. And yeah, I actually did that last year. They got some. They picked up a couple very good vocals because I did that earlier, and then when they went out, it's like wow. And they had them authenticated. They sent them away, and he's like, they're saying they can't say that this is what they call them Bigfoot. Because there's nothing documented to prove that's what that is, but this is, it's real. So, I welcome any kind of interaction with anybody. That only thing like I said, I will talk to anybody. I will not tolerate disrespect. I don't disrespect anybody, so I will not accept disrespect from anybody. Anybody wants to talk to me in a logical way, I will more than likely, happy to talk to them about it. And I love to hear their opinion.
Donna, I want to go through some of the images that you sent me. So the first page of this, I can't even believe this is you. Look how gorgeous this photo is.
That was, like I said, I was a little younger, and I do my ceremonies. And when I go out, I'm usually I'll go full dress. Sometimes I'm in full, my dress is made out of fur, and it's like soft as butter. So, and then I have my dad's wolf mask. It's hanging up here above me. It's handed down to me. So that's his headdress. So I will use it.
Oops. Oh, you can't see it. I tried to make it small so we can see it, but you can't.
Nah.
And then this is you.
That was around my first interaction. I was I had promised my dad. How I got the pony was I hated school, School had started. I did not like being confined inside of a building. And I promised him if he would buy me a pony, because I didn't have a pony of my own that time. If he got me a pony, I would go to school. Well, he bought my pony. About 3 days into after getting my pony, I ran away on the pony to the woods. So, like I said, my poor dad, I was.
You were a wild one.
Yeah.
All right. So now we get into some of the evidence that you've collected over the years.
That I got. That was 2 years ago, and that isn't even half of the footprint. That is just the toes. It actually had a heel on it, like the long foot heel. That was up around the waterfalls. I have my grandson had actually found a petrified. It's a stone. I don't know if it's a hand or a foot. You can see the claws in it. We found it there. We found a lot of artifacts there, and that's also where I found that massive amount of hair that I found here. So,
and of course, that's you.
That is I have an old tobacco barn that sits way back in the woods. It's on an old abandoned farm. And I go there, and I have a table there, and I will put my cakes, and and they'll actually come in that, you see the bottom of the barn there, that's all dirt and their footprints. I get their footprints in there. They have a trail. There's a big pond. I call it the hidden pond. That's not too far from where that is, which is full of, that's from 2 years ago. That footprint was about 15 inches and about 6 wide. And I think that's the one. He has 4 toes. And in that creek, there are turtles and minnows and crawfish. And they were, that is the hair. That hair,
about
it is 6 foot long and about 2 feet wide. And when you pull it all out and straighten it out, it was in the sand and the foliage there beside that waterfalls. And my son, I hadn't gotten to go out for a while because I'd been caring for somebody that was sick. And we went over there, and he's like, "What is that sticking up out there?" And he started just, pulling it, and it just kept coming more and more. And finally, I was like, "Wait, stop! I don't know what that is, but we're messing up. If there's DNA on there, we're contaminating it." So we took it out. It's sitting on top. We had a backpack. You see my backpack underneath of it. And so we packed it out and brought it home, and then we took it out, and it was wet. The thing about that hair is, the funny part about it is, when it's wet, I could take the picture. Now, I laid it out over top of a metal chair, and it dried overnight. It's like dreadlocks. It's like, it's like a person that has a huge, but no human being, I don't think, could have that much hair. But it's just matted dreadlock. There's no skin on that. There's no hide. It's not, it's just hair.
Did it get pulled out or something?
Well, I talked to a researcher, and we discussed, I was like, because I'd taken it to a taxidermist, and he said, it's hair. I can't tell you what kind of hair. There's nothing around here that has anything like that. Nothing that we know of. No animal that we know of.
And it's not human.
And it's not human. No. So when I talked to the researcher, he's like, what happens is, like, when an animal dies and it's in the water, or anything dies and it's in the water runs through it, the hair will slough off. It will come off. And it, it's like when you tan a hide, if you're going to do soap or whatever. Well, that's logical. That makes sense. That, that could be what happened. But what can it come from? He said, the taxidermist, he says, the closest thing he would be like a beefalo or a buffalo. And we don't have anything like that around here, not where I'm at.
That's interesting. And, do you think that, how a deer will actually go into a creek or a lake when it dies?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why they do that. I've seen it before. I've seen it happen once with a deer. That's how I know this.
Mm-hmm.
a deer, when it's sick, will actually go into the water to die.
Yep.
And then it'll decompose in the water.
Right.
Do you think that's what these things do, and that's why we never find them?
I questioned that too. I thought, well, maybe it's a burial, or because we found so much other stuff there, like that petrify. I don't know if I sent you a picture of it or not, but it's like this. It's an actual foot. It is a rock. It is turned to stone, so it's not a print. It is a actual, Jeremy. If I can get him to run up and get it, but. We found that there. We found all kind of artifacts, and the hair came from there. That footprint came from there. That area it's kind of deep in the woods, and that's one of the markers, the whatever the tree structures. I find those. Now people say, "Oh," one guy says, "Oh." The Boy Scouts did that. This is private land. There's no Boy Scouts on there.
There's no Boy Scouts around here.
No. And if you look at those trees, if that's a Boy Scout picking those trees are about 25, 30 feet tall. And they're loose. Those aren't attached to the ground. Those are loose, so they're put together. They're formed together. They're not tight. It's the way they lay them. It's like teepee type style. Mm-hmm. And I've had people tell me, well, that they use that to like, what do you call it? Like when they're aliens and they go in there to leave or project out whatever. And but I don't.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, they think that these pyramid structures can be like portals, or they could be structures. There's one lady that I know in particular in England. She uses them for healing.
Right.
She has a metaphysical shop, and she's got like a crystal pyramid that people will sit in and do Reiki and things with.
Right. Right. Well, my grandmother, she was a healer. So she the herbs and the plants, and I do that too. I have my own. I gather from the wild or whatever. So that's handed down. I'm not as good at it as she was. Believe me, she was. I don't have that ability. That daybreak. Now, I passed that tree every day when I would leave. I went out the tree the day before, the evening before. It was fine. I came back. There's no wind. There was no storm. And you see all around that, you see there is no damage. It's like something took it, twisted it, and broke it down. And then I went and I checked it out. And now on that tree, there is like, like the mushroom type thing. It's like the chicken of the woods,
the chicken of the woods that people
right.
Like
So I'm thinking, did they break that down, or were they playing with it, or did they break that down to eat that, to get that to eat, because they eat it?
It would make sense if they would eat it. If humans eat it, then.
Well, they eat plants. Yeah. Well, like me, I go to the woods. I've been taught to harvest, the greens, the Shawnee lettuce, the wild onions, the yellow dock, the sour dock, the woolly britches, all these. It's eatable. You go and get it. You collect it. You bring it in. You cook it with some. We use Joe bacon or whatever, and you make a pot of beans. This is old time, you live off the land type thing. They eat like that too. They don't just eat meat, they eat, they like the berries. They like the greens.
So what kind of meat do they eat?
Well, they definitely like deer, but they will take, the fish, the little turtles from the creek, the crawdads. It's just like us, but they can go and forage there. We do the same thing, not like we used to back years ago when that's how you had to live. Now you go to the supermarket, but like me, I just discussed this with another one of my friends, and I was like, I could go in the woods and live. I could feed myself. That picture there, like we had talked about before, I got that picture outside my bathroom window in the last year around September of last year. I was listening to a podcast of the group that actually comes here, and he had put off, they were playing some of his vocals. They played like 3 vocals. It's around 11 o'clock at night. And in my bathroom, it's a little bedroom that I turn into a bathroom. So it has a sliding glass window that's big enough like a door that I could step out. Right behind that room, there's a creek, and then the woods is directly right there. And I leave my dryer vent off, and it was still, I hadn't put it back on because I'll heat my bathroom with it in the wintertime. And I'd opened that window because I was running the dryer and it was hot. And I walked in, I had my phone because I'm listening to that podcast. And when I got in there, I got, of course, the window's open, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm going to let the mosquitoes in because the creek's right there. And so when I got to the windows, well, I'll close it, but I got hit with the wet dog smell. And they got a funky, they don't all smell the same, but this one here had a funky smell. So I just stuck my arm out the window. There's no screen on that window. I just stuck my arm out into midair, and I snapped 2 pictures. Those are the pictures I got. And you see, I don't know if anybody can see the faces in there. I see them clearly myself.
I see something. There's a face in there for sure. And for the listeners out there, these are the same photo, but from different angles. So the first one on the left there, it's a little back, and you can kind of see the nose, the chin, the mouth. It almost looks like this person has, or this thing, whatever it might be. What it kind of reminds me of, actually, is almost like the Green Man. You know how they have the laurel around their head and things?
There's there's a tree where that's at. There's a big tree there. So it was literally there at that tree within 10 feet of my arm, where I stuck my arm out, is where that was at. So there's a,
really interesting. So they don't really look like, so it almost doesn't look like an ape or anything like that.
Yeah, no, that's what people ask me. That's a black panther. They tell us we don't have panthers here, but we do. I've been seeing those. They took out some calves when I was a child. So that's a whole other story. But no, they don't look like a gorilla. I mean, I guess there is some similarities maybe, but like their hands, they have more human type hands and feet. The palm of their hands is smooth. It doesn't have hair on the bottom of their hands. There's hair on top. The fingers are like fingers. They don't have, people talk about these massive claws. They have fingers, of course they have nails, but their face, it's, to me, this is my opinion. Everybody has their own, and this is just my opinion of what I see. Here it's like the skin is like leathery, but it's smooth right in here. Of course, the fur is here. The eyes, you can see the eyes, and the lips, is not covered. So I've seen some that has more of a pointed head, but mostly, as you see in that's more flat. They don't have like dog ears or anything like it. It's more, like human type ears. Now this is what I see. This is the ones I call them mine. I can't tell you that if I left my area, because I've grown up. I've lived 3 places in my whole life. The farm I grew up on, the farm I moved to, which was another 300-acre farm, which was only about 6 miles from where I grew up, where I raised my children, and then where I live today. So in my whole lifetime I've lived, and this is all within 10 to 15 mile area. So I've never left this area. I've always been, I was born, where I was born at is, I was born at home, and um, the house set up underneath of it's Red Rock is the name of the place, but that's a ceremonial. It's a Shawnee. It was Shawnee land. Shawnee didn't own it. It was private owned by then. But so I've always, I I've never left my family ground, and it's been here with me. So that's I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but I kind of.
Well, from all of your experiences with the Watchers, what have you like? First of all, what is their purpose in their relationship with your family and with the Shawnee? And second of all, have there been any significant guidance or lessons throughout your life that they have taught you?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I've been taught. They were here as the Watchers to watch over us, to protect us. So, and they have taught me a lot. They've taught me through my experience with being them, and the lessons I've had to learn is, the control of my emotions. I had terrible, 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 terrible temper, and that was one of the hardest things that I had to overcome was my temper and my ability to the patience. And they can make me go to sleep. They've never harmed me, and I have been moved. I have lost time. I was picked up and moved. Like I was talking about my creek, I was, I went to sleep in that creek. When I woke up, I had been picked up and moved up onto that rock on the bank. They didn't hurt me. They didn't scratch me. They didn't molest me. They didn't do anything to harm me. But I did lose some time, and I couldn't really account for that. And now I can, I go back into the woods. I'll sit down, and it's kind of like their way of communicating with me is, I play my music or I do whatever. But sometimes over my lifetime, I lost my husband and son in a car accident. It's been over 30 years ago, which made me think, it's that, I thought my life was over, that I had other children, but they, I give, they were part of what helped me to survive. It was just kind of a peace. They helped me to have peace. I can go into the woods and whatever. So they have taught me a lot of things. Like Dad showed me the markers, and they will lay out stones. Like there's a group of people goes into the woods, and
so they're kind of like guardians.
They are. To me, they are. Like I said, I can't say that for everybody because everybody hasn't had what I had. So you got new people going out there just looking for them. They want to, they're interested in finding them and what they're all about. But they go out and they're charging the woods and they're making a lot of ruckus and they're carrying guns. Not that I don't carry a gun. Don't get me wrong. I do carry a gun, and yes, I'm a very good shot. I would never shoot. I have no reason to shoot a watcher. I would not. But there's other animals out there, and
Donna, we are out of time. Thank you so much for being on the show.
That happens.
Yeah, definitely happens. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, and it's just very interesting because you hear so many different stories about the Watchers, the Bigfoot. Everyone has their own experiences with them.
Absolutely. There's good and bad in everything, and I would be the first one to tell you, do not think that they're not dangerous, because they are.
They
don't.
can.
Yes, they can be very, unpredictable, and not all of them is the same. I have. For me, mine has been gentle, but there's others that isn't. And just like you got two neighbors, you got a neighbor over here is the best person in the world, will do anything in the world for you. But this neighbor over here, that God help you, you don't know what they're going to do to you, and they're the same way. So,
Well, Donna, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the show and sharing.
you're absolutely well. Thank you for the opportunity just to let me blab.
And there you have it. That was Donna Copas, and she was sharing her story about her lifelong experiences with encountering the Watchers. And keep in mind, this is from somebody who is a firsthand experiencer. She's not a researcher or any of that kind of stuff. And that's why I wanted to get her story to kind of get a different perspective on things, because all you really hear about anymore is investigators going into the woods and finding this and finding that. It's kind of nice to get firsthand accounts of this stuff. And the same with the paranormal. So I'm going to start trying to find, real experiencers, real people who have lifelong paranormal experiences. So you've been listening to The Gateway, broadcast from the edge of the Mojave, where the strange slip through the cracks, live from the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM New Orleans. Thank you all for listening, and stay tuned for next week. I have Dennis Stone of America's Stonehenge. Thank you all, and have a good night.